Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news. This is Bloomberg Businessweek Daily, reporting from the magazine that helps global leaders stay ahead, with insight on the people, companies, and trends shaping today's complex economy, plus global business, finance, and tech news as it happens. The Bloomberg Businessweek Daily podcast with Carol Masser and Tim Stenivek on Bloomberg Radio.
To one of the most read stories on the Bloomberg terminal, and that's about Elon Musk accusing Apple and OpenAI in a lawsuit of unfairly favoring the AI company across iPhones and thwarting competition for other chatbot makers. We've got Madeline Meckelberg with us, Bloomberg News legal reporter. She joins us from the Bloomberg Austin, Texas bureau. Madeline, what's at issue here? We've heard rumblings about complaints from Elon Musk on social media over the last week or so, but now it's official. What's the complaint say?
Right. Nobody should be surprised to see this lawsuit today. Like you say, Elon Musk has been tweeting about it or posting about it, But essentially, this lawsuit accuses Apple and OpenAI of forming what he describes as an illegal arrangement that allows both companies to retain monopolies in their respective industries, being smartphones for Apple and artificial intelligence for OpenAI. And it centers on two ideas, basically. He's accusing them of orchestrating this arrangement by having Apple integrate OpenAI into the iPhone's operating system, and also by having Apple supposedly prioritize ChatGPT in its app store over other artificial intelligence products.
Are these accusations valid, and what would be the legal ramifications here?
Right. I mean, these ideas are not happening in a vacuum. We've heard similar allegations made against Apple in the past when it comes to how they wield the power of their app store. And I think if we drill down a little closer into some of the legal arguments here, particularly when we're talking about integration, the argument here is on antitrust grounds. That's what this lawsuit has been brought against. And it's this argument that by using these two powerful companies and having them work together in this way, they're reducing consumer choice because iPhone users have to use ChatGPT if they're on their phone instead of a different AI software, if maybe they prefer something like Grok or XAI. And they argue also another element of this is that it gives OpenAI a leg up over other AI companies because now they're going to have access to billions of queries and questions submitted by iPhone users that other companies won't have access to. And so it's really about antitrust and this idea that whatever kind of agreement may exist between these companies, it's hurting other people operating and competing in this space, but it's also hurting consumers who lose choice. So what they're looking for here is a court order that would ask Apple and OpenAI to stop operating in this fashion.
So what's interesting about this, and like you said, it's been playing out over the last couple of weeks. In your story, you include a post that I've seen as well by Sam Altman pushing back on the claims that Elon Musk made earlier this month. Elon Musk said Apple's behaving in a manner that makes it impossible for any AI company besides OpenAI to reach number one in the App Store, which is an unequivocal antitrust violation. XAI will take immediate legal action. Sam Altman pushed back and said, quote, "This is a remarkable claim given what I have heard alleged that Elon does to manipulate X to benefit himself and his own companies and harm his competitors and people he doesn't like." To be fair, there have been stories about what has been highlighted and what hasn't been highlighted on Elon Musk's social media platform. You know, maybe people have noticed that they see a lot of Elon Musk in their feed, even if they don't necessarily follow him in their For You tab. Or I get ads from Starlink all the time. That's an Elon-owned company. There have been, it's known that his companies work together in certain instances. And he's also been outspoken about links from news organizations not working as well on X. So it's a little complicated, isn't it?
It's incredibly complicated. And I think this is going to be one of those cases that captures attention from across these industries, but also any industry that touches them or works with Musk's companies, because we're talking about so many huge players who wield so much power and influence in this tech space, but also in this AI space. And when we're talking about the Sam Altman and the Elon Musk of this and how they've gone back and forth publicly trading barbs, That's a feud between these two tech leaders that has gone on for years since they co-founded OpenAI together and split publicly. And this feels like we're just ratcheting up in the tension between these two leaders as it comes to them talking about their products and how they're publicly being perceived, and these kind of collaborations that you're talking about. So certainly what happens here, the outcome here is going to be felt everywhere, and it could reflect on Musk's companies as well.
Right. And this isn't the first time we've had these situations where Apple has been called out for its app store potentially promoting or having a high search for certain companies here, right?
That's correct. I mean, Apple is still in a 5-year legal fight with Epic Games over allegations about its App Store's dominance in the smartphone market. And a lot of the complaints that we saw raised today in the Elon Musk lawsuit actually were echoed in a suit earlier, a few years ago, filed by the Justice Department against Apple that also accused the company of monopolizing the smartphone market and using its power over app distribution to kind of thwart innovation that makes it easier for consumers to switch between phones. And that centers on this idea of blocking things that are known as super apps or everything apps, and this idea that you're creating an app that has a lot of different features that people get from a smartphone. And by blocking those apps from being available publicly, they're able to retain control over those users who might be looking for an alternative to using the smartphone. And so this certainly, we're not covering new territory here that much in this litigation, but what's new about it is who the players are and this like huge pivotal moment in time we're at when it comes to AI and figuring out what kind of guardrails need to be on these things moving forward.
Madeline Meckelberg, Bloomberg News legal reporter, her story among the most read today on the Bloomberg terminal, all about Elon Musk pursuing legal action against Apple and OpenAI, saying that they hurt AI competition. She joins us from our Austin, Texas bureau. Stay with us. More from Bloomberg Businessweek Daily coming up after this.
You're listening to the Bloomberg Businessweek Daily Podcast. Catch us live weekday afternoons from 2 to 5 Eastern. Listen on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app. Or watch us live on YouTube.
Tomorrow, we get an update on durable goods orders, consumer confidence as well from the Conference Board. Thursday, we're going to get U.S. GDP. And on Friday, watch for core PCE. That's just some of what's going on, some of the data to keep an eye on. Watching it all and more, Jennifer Lee, senior economist and managing director of economics for BMO Capital Markets. The firm has just over $1 trillion in assets under management. Jennifer joins us from Toronto. Jennifer, we're going to get to all of this data, but I want to start with your takeaways from Jackson Hole. For a week ago, we were sitting here saying it's all about Friday. It's all about Friday. It's all about Fed Chair Powell's speech. We got that. Markets breathed a sigh of relief. There was a relief rally. That euphoria around rate cuts certainly easing. What were your takeaways?
So first of all, good afternoon, and thank you very much for having me on. And full disclosure, I was actually one of the few people that thought, oh, he's not going to say anything. What is he going to possibly say? He's going to sort of stay safe. And I was pleasantly surprised. And that's one of the positives that I took away on Friday, just not just getting some clarity on the trade front, but getting some clarity on where, we see monetary policy going. And he certainly did hint toward a rate cut. He didn't say anything, I don't think, beyond that, but it certainly looks like he is becoming a little more comfortable with a September rate cut. And again, just to use phrases that have been used so many times over the last number of years, we're going to be data dependent. It's going to depend on a meeting and by meeting basis. But he was talking about how, the dual mandates are being, it's sort of difficult to wrestle with both dual mandates right now. But there is more of a downside risk coming from the job side, and he's not as worried, it seems now, from the inflation side, which was kind of interesting. So anyway, definitely more comforted knowing that at least he is starting to think about rate cuts. And although, President Trump did say it was too late, but at least, again, we know that it is most likely going to come data dependent. We still have a few more numbers, by the way, as you mentioned, to keep an eye on before that September 17th date.
Jennifer, he's certainly becoming more comfortable with the idea of a rate cut as you're laying out here for us and what we saw last week. Where do you see monetary policy going? Are you expecting a rate cut next month? What's the cadence afterward, if so?
So we haven't changed our forecasts much at all over the last little while. We continue to see two more rate cuts this year, September and December, 25 basis points each, and about four next year, probably on a quarterly cadence theme, I guess, like four times next year, so and two more times this year. So that's sort of how we see the economic landscape playing out right now. Of course, lots can change depending on how some of these trade deals go, depending on how inflation pans out, what's happening on the jobs front as well. But right now, I think it's a pretty fair, safe sort of, bet to take that, a couple of this year. Although I don't think every single Fed policymaker is on board with that.
The president late on Friday said the U.S. is conducting a, quote, major tariff investigation on furniture coming into the United States. Just when you kind of thought that there was a little bit of clarity when it came to what was happening with tariffs, there's a new element thrown into this. How big of an effect does that have, in your view, on just the way that countries are thinking about the United States as a trading partner?
So I guess it just suggests that, and again, full disclosure, that wasn't even on my radar, furniture, but it sort of
you and me both, I'll be honest.
It sort of leans into the whole lumber and steel, tariff category. But it just gives us a reminder that nothing is off the table in terms of tariffs. And if they are deemed to be, a possible source of national security or whatever, or there's some type of unfairness kicking in, then yes, it's going to be the focus, or one of the things that the administration is going to focus on. So we can't get too comfortable with it. And it also suggests that, potentially in the inflation story, we might start seeing those stronger inflationary pressures perk up again in coming months. Because I think there's like 50 days, I believe, that the administration said that they're going to take to start to study this sector. And if all is found to be in order or not in order, then you can see tariffs being thrown onto the furniture sector. So again, we could see potentially more inflation playing out. We could see more pressures on the consumer front, and then we're going to have to see how the Fed is going to handle it. Like again, how much of the higher prices will be pushed onto the U.S. consumer, and whether or not the U.S. consumer can deal with it.
Super briefly, do you believe that the U.S. consumer will be able to deal with this? Of course, we saw a lot of data previously. We didn't really see tariffs being baked in there yet.
So far, the U.S. consumer has been holding up. And we've been saying for, 100 years now, never to underestimate the U.S. consumer. And I still stand by that. Of course, at the same time, it's all going to come down to jobs and whether or not there's going to be continued strong demand for jobs. Wages, especially, that's the one thing I want to say about the Friday's report on personal income and spending. I want to keep an eye on the wages and salaries component to see whether or not we're going to still see a solid reading. I think of the prior month, it was a very soft reading, which is a bit, disconcerting. So as long as we continue to see steady gains in wages and salaries, consumers will still be able to sock a little bit away for the rainy day, keep the saving rate, around 4% or so. And then they can sort of sit back and maybe wait it out a little bit, but at least they can still, as long as they have a job and they can still afford to buy things, I think the U.S. consumer will be in pretty good shape. And I will also say that this whole 90-day pause that the U.S. now has with China, which brings us to November, I think it's November 10th, sort of also puts off, some of these higher tariffs onto these U.S. products as well. So that's good news on the inflation front, although I did see a headline just flashed in front of me about how President Trump is threatening China with 200%.
Well, always stay glued. Always stay glued to the terminal for all the latest. Jennifer Lee over at BMO. Stay with us. More from Bloomberg Businessweek Daily coming up after this.
This is the Bloomberg Businessweek Daily podcast. Listen live each weekday starting at 2 p.m. Eastern on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app. You can also listen live on Amazon Alexa from our flagship New York station. Just say, Alexa, play Bloomberg 1130.
Boeing CEO Kelly Ortberg's campaign to rebuild the company culture is being put to the test by a rise in labor activism. Boeing and union leaders representing striking workers at its St. Louis area defense factories are set to return to the bargaining table today as they aim to end a 3-week-long impasse. Workers have grievances over pay and pensions that were sacrificed in long-term contracts, and the company faces lingering ill will from its past tactics. We've got with us Sid Phillip, chief correspondent for global aviation for Bloomberg News. He joins us here in the Bloomberg Businessweek studio. Sid, at the heart of the labor issue here, what exactly is it? Because this is focused on the defense portion of Boeing's business.
Yeah, so this is Boeing's defense workers who are on strike. So it's a smaller strike than the one we saw last year when people making the essentially their bread and butter commercial aircraft went on strike, and that was sort of much more hard hitting for Boeing. This is a smaller scale dispute, but at the same time, it is vitally important because Boeing defense business is in the process of being overhauled, and Kelly Ortberg has talked about how he wants to sort of bring it to a more steady pace of growth, a steady sort of returns. And that's really being put to the test by this stoppage, which is basically affecting output. The lines are still open, unlike when the Seattle strike happened. The lines are still open in St. Louis, but at the same time, output is nowhere near where it should be.
Sid, so it seems as though there's some pretty key requests here that they are looking for here at the union to see that Boeing is able to give them. But we're dealing with a 3-week-long impasse here. Is this long? How long could these potentially be drawn out for?
I mean, the previous strike went on for 99 days, and so this is not the longest strike that the company's faced. At the same time, it is disruptive for the company. It's disruptive to the efforts to turn around the company. And it is disruptive for Boeing because there's just one more fire that they need to fight at a time when they're already fighting many fires.
You know, they're doing a good job, though, I think analysts and investors would say, of combating some of the issues that the company has had. For all intents and purposes, Kelly Ortberg, analysts and investors would say, has done a pretty good job turning the company around. And now it finds itself in this unique position as being essentially this bargaining chip when it comes to U.S. trade.
It does. I mean, Boeing has sort of turned around the corner since its massive. It had the grounding of the 737 following those 2 fatal crashes. The plane came back into service. And last year we had the door plug blowout, which then sort of put back scrutiny on Boeing. We had the strike last year. So Kelly Ortberg has managed to sort of start turning the process of turning the company around. At the same time, the company still has long ways to go before it's actually on a stable footing.
So you say that it has long ways to go. What are you looking for? What are investors looking for here?
So investors are looking for when Boeing will be sort of untapped, but it's the FAA at the moment has capped production of the 737 at 38 a month. They're looking to see where the signs are in terms of being able to go to 42 a month and then potentially go to beyond where they were pre-pandemic. Airbus has talked about 75 a month on the competing A320neo. So this is where Boeing would sort of, in a scenario where they can actually get everything together, that's where Boeing would be.
You and the team last week were the first to report that Boeing is close to ending its sales drought with China. The story moving Boeing shares as much as 3.7%. Boeing said to be in talks to sell up to 500 jets to China. Is that going to happen?
We're still waiting to see. I mean, a lot of it depends on the trade negotiations that are underway between the US and China. And we understand that any agreement with Boeing would be conditional on some sort of trade agreement being reached. And Boeing has become emblematic of trade agreements across the world. I mean, we saw that with Qatar. We saw that with other deals where Trump touts the Boeing angle of it is as part of the wins for the US. And so Boeing has become really crucial to US foreign policy and trade negotiations. And this would be one of the biggest orders and potentially one of the biggest trade negotiations. Not
to mention a 747 that was given to the U.S. government by another country as well. Hey, Sid, always love chatting planes with you. Sid Phillip is a Bloomberg global aviation correspondent, chief correspondent for global aviation here in our Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studio. Stay with us. More from Bloomberg Businessweek Daily coming up after this.
You're listening to the Bloomberg Businessweek Daily Podcast. Catch us live weekday afternoons from 2 to 5 Eastern. Listen on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app. Or watch us live on YouTube.
I want to bring in Christina Cassotis, CEO of the Pittsburgh International Airport. We're going to talk to you about the airport update in just a minute, specifically that new terminal and how it's going, setting to open up this fall. First, though, give us an update on how business is shaping up for the summer, because when we spoke earlier in the summer, you gave us the impression that things were looking pretty good.
They were looking pretty good, and they are pretty good. We're actually having our second busiest June in nearly 20 years, but the industry overall is definitely seeing some softness. And I'm confident that on Bloomberg, I've heard you cover airline earnings and what Ed Bastian was saying about, the fact that airlines are having to cut capacity in September in order to get back to profitability is something that we're all paying attention to.
Are you experiencing any cuts in routes to or from Pittsburgh's International Airport?
Yes, we have seen some as a result of Spirit's bankruptcy, definitely, but that's not unique to us. Otherwise, like I said, we're having a great summer. It's just that we were expecting to have a better summer. Okay. So, we're in good shape. We were expecting more traffic this summer.
So what are the drivers for that, pullback, drop off in traffic here over the summer?
Well, so one of the things, there's no question, there are a lot more schools starting in August. And I think that I agree with Ed Bastian that definitely has an impact on August. I would say that the other thing is that, as we have seen, we were all expecting much more growth in air travel for this year when we were doing our plans. And while as I said, we're flat against last year, we expected to see an increase. And, there's a lot of reasons for that. We're certainly not the only ones experiencing it. We are seeing that globally and nationwide as well. So lots of reasons, I'm sure.
So are you all at all being impacted by the strikes from Air Canada?
We are not being impacted by the strikes for Air Canada. We have had service flying to the markets that we have here, Montreal and Toronto. And that has not been an impact to us directly as of yet.
There's only so much within your control. Yeah, I don't,
that's right.
That I think maybe that's like a mantra that we all should be repeating all the time.
Right,
but I think especially with you, because, you think about it from the perspective of customers, they're not necessarily, the airports it's table stakes, right? They're going to use, especially in a place like Pittsburgh. In New York City, it's like, okay, well, I can choose to fly out of LaGuardia, Newark, or JFK, depending on where I'm going and where I'm coming from. So if you think about it from your perspective, what do you do in a situation where your expectations don't meet reality?
So that is, first of all, that's the job, just to be clear, right? As an airport, we are definitely at the mercy of the airlines and the decisions that they make, as well as our passengers and what's affecting them, their household economies, or what's happening in their businesses. So what we've done is spent a lot of time, candidly, reimagining what the airport can do and be for the community, which is why we have, for as much focus as we have on the day-to-day operation and making sure that it runs safely, that we're building this new terminal, we're demonstrating to our business partners that we are a good business partner for them. We are also investing in a lot of other activities that perhaps airports don't necessarily pay attention to: energy independence, on-site SAF production here at the airport, looking at how we use our facility as a technology innovation accelerator for airlines and airports globally. In other words, how do we participate in the broader economic impact using the facilities that we have? And that has actually been incredibly successful for us. So while passenger traffic will drive the majority of our revenue, we are looking to diversify that revenue stream in order to be able to continue to invest in necessary capital and programs that are really going to make this airport be everything it can be and should be when traffic does return and continues to grow.
Christina, if summer wasn't as good, what are expectations for the fall? Of course, we have a couple holidays, Labor Day right around the corner, Thanksgiving ahead. What are the expectations moving forward in the fall?
We're all watching the major airlines to see what they're going to do with capacity. We're watching Spirit. We're looking at how Southwest is managing in its. Right now we are expecting to continue to not realize what we had budgeted in for growth. So we were looking for 6% this year, and we are expecting to probably stay flat. And that's something that we're working around. At the end of the day, and you know this, you both have been covering this industry for a while, traffic always comes back. It always comes back. And it usually comes back stronger. So what we do is we ride it out and we manage in the meantime.
Hey, we only have about a minute left, and I want to get two more questions in. Sure. First on what happens this winter, and if you're seeing signs of airlines pulling back even more this winter.
Not yet.
Okay. Not yet. So stay tuned for that. We could also see airlines increase capacity too. It doesn't just go one way.
That's right.
Let's talk about October and the new terminal opening. Still on track for October?
Still on track. We have not set a final date yet, but yes, still on track. We are moving forward with lots of trials and testing, integrated trials, and lots of events for the community and for the industry to let everybody see what they can expect. But yeah, we are so far on track for sometime in October, date to be determined.
What can people expect?
Oh my gosh, it's fantastic. You should come see it. It's
I saw it under construction. It was just walls. Yeah. That I couldn't see into, so I don't know.
Yes, it's different now.
Okay.
So it's actually like nothing else in the U.S. It's beautiful. It's filled with lots of natural light. There's lots of space and lots of good intuitive wayfinding, universal access, space for meeters and greeters. It makes sure that everybody who needs to use this airport as either an employee or a passenger and or a partner is going to get what they need and be able to deliver services to each other rather seamlessly. So it's spectacular in terms of design, and the services we'll deliver, we think, will be far superior to what we're able to do today. A lot of that enabled by technology that keeps people still at the center.
Well, looking forward to checking it out. Christina, always great to check in with you. Thank you, as always, for joining us on Bloomberg Businessweek Daily. Christina Cassotis, she's CEO of the Pittsburgh International Airport.
This is the Bloomberg Businessweek Daily podcast. Available on Apple, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. Listen live weekday afternoons from 2 to 5 p.m. Eastern on Bloomberg.com, the iHeartRadio app, TuneIn, and the Bloomberg Business app. You can also watch us live every weekday on YouTube and always on the Bloomberg Terminal.